If you have roommates, what if you were the landlord and you rented out the other rooms? So that way you can kind of have best of both worlds. I'm Nathan, and just in case you're new here, I'm a real estate investor and mortgage lender. So in today's video, we're going to cover what I learned when I was house hacking in my early real estate investing career. So flashback to nearly 10 years ago when I bought my first home. Right out of college, I put 3% down. And I remember I was very hesitant to step into home ownership because renting out a room was about $800 at the time. And my mortgage, as silly as it sounds, was about $2,500 a month. Today, that same mortgage payment would probably be like $5,000 a month. Having $800 a month for a room versus $2,500 for a house, it was about 3x the housing payment. I think anyone would be nervous in that situation. I was still an aerospace engineer at the time, and I was going through that process, and I was talking to a friend who was in the industry, and he just like nonchalantly mentioned, hey, have you thought about buying a home and being the landlord and renting out the other rooms? When he said that, it was like one of those things where it just really clicked for me. I was like, wait, I can do that? And I was like, dude, I don't even need to crunch the numbers. If I buy a 4-bedroom and I rent out the 3 other rooms, I could essentially live rent-free and save all the money I could get from my wages or my engineering career at the time and really turbocharge my investing career in my savings. So I'll share a funny story of how extreme I went into the house hacking game. So I ended up buying that 4-bedroom house, and I ended up renting out the master bedroom and the room right next to it. And then I was in the smallest room possible, so that way I can maximize my profits. The room right next to me was empty at the time. I used to play a lot of video games. So I had a friend that I was playing computer video games with, and he was essentially saying, hey man, like, did you hear about this like Bitcoin thing? You can kind of mine it on your computer. So I ended up not renting out that room to a person, but I rented it out to these mining rigs. We got all these graphics cards. If you guys don't know, graphic cards running 24/7, it's just this loud white noise, this fan, super annoying because it was running the whole time, but also super rewarding knowing that I'm sleeping at night and it's mining Bitcoin. I ended up mining it and selling it right away. Hindsight 2020, like most things in life, I think Bitcoin's like over 50,000 right now, kicking myself in the butt. So don't make the same mistakes I did. That's why I'm making this video. So long story short, I knew that house hacking was the fastest way for me to save up as much money as possible and really set myself up for success in the future. And that friend in the real estate industry said I could buy that home and 2 to 3 years later still keep that home and rent it out and then save up money to go buy a longer term home. What we're going to go over today is 5 things that I learned about house hacking that I wish I would have known. So tip number 1, which is having a property management software tool to automate the payment processing. So again, this was like nearly 10 years ago, so I don't even think Venmo is around, but now there's so many tools out there where you can have property management like Rent Ready, which is actually what we use right now, and then we have a virtual assistant to kind of handle the day-to-day. But Rent Ready or the other tools out there, you can essentially have your tenant or roommate sign up and essentially make automatic payments so that way you don't have to bug them to make your payments on time. So if I could go back in time, I would definitely spend a little bit of money. Maybe it's like $20 a month, I think is what Rent Ready is, where you can have your payments automated and your lease agreements DocuSigned and everything taken care of. So tip number 2, which is utilities, right? So setting it up front, how you're gonna pay utilities with your roommates and you. We have 2 different options, which I would recommend, which is you just pay the utilities yourself and then you just increase your rent for your roommates. The other path, which is just splitting the utilities evenly. Don't do something in between. It just becomes a nightmare where you're like, someone was gone for a day, so then you prorate them less than a day, pay for it all up front and just charge more in rent. Or the other option, which is just split the utilities evenly. That'll save you a ton of headache and make it more hassle-free. Tip number 3, which is doing a half-month lease in the beginning that converts to an 11.5-month lease after. So why would I recommend this? So obviously talk to a real estate lawyer and check with your local legislation. But essentially what you do is you have this probation period. You want to make sure that you live well with your potential roommate and your roommate lives well with you, making sure you guys are on the same cleanliness level, same schedule or different schedules, jiving schedules. And essentially if you do a half-month lease in the beginning, you can vet out if that roommate will work out. If they don't, then you end the lease and then you guys are on your merry way. So take that pro tip. It saved me a ton of headaches when I was early on in my house hacking career. The 4th one, which is you might have heard me say that I had a split floor plan. I would definitely do that again, where we had essentially 2 rooms together near the front door of the house, and then the other rooms were at the back of the house. So maybe if you're having a 2-bedroom room, maybe that fits your budget. I would definitely spend a little more money having it split. That would make your life way easier and their life easier, therefore everyone's happier. Last tip, which is tip number 5, is it's only temporary. I remember when I was going through the process and I was telling myself, this is only gonna be temporary and it's not gonna be forever. I know having a roommate 30 years from now is not ideal. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, my significant other doesn't wanna have a roommate, I don't wanna have a roommate, or whatever the situation is. Just know that it was only temporary. I did house hacking for about 2 years, and then I was able to save up enough and then, live on my own. What I always tell myself is, if I'm going through the tough times, is if we look back 2 years ago, and maybe you do this exercise too, how fast did that 2 years fly by? Probably like a blink of an eye, right? So just know that when you're in the thick of it, you may think it may last forever, but I promise you it's only temporary, and you'll set yourself up for success. Awesome, so we covered those 5 tips or lessons learned about house hacking, which is property management software tool to automate the payments. Utilities, figuring out how to split it or paying it up front. A half-month lease that converts to an 11.5-month lease. So that way you have this probation period. The other is having a split floor plan, so that way you have a better lifestyle that way. And number 5, which is it's only temporary. If you found this interesting, consider following me on all the socials. Aside from that, I'm rooting for you. This is Nathan, signing out.